E aí, galera? Meu nome é Murilo, sou de Goiânia. Hey everyone, my name is Murillo. I'm an immigrant from South America. I was born in Brazil and migrated illegally to America when I was 2.5 years old with my mom. We grew up in San Francisco in the Sunset District. And when we first came to America, my parents didn't know a lick of English. So I was actually the first one in my family to learn English, and I actually learned it from watching TV, watching cartoons. I remember early on in life, San Francisco and even Oakland, where I lived on later, were pretty rich immigrant communities with a lot of diversity of immigrants. But even within the immigrant population, I knew that I was kind of a smaller group within immigrants. In San Francisco and Oakland, there was a lot of Chinese people, and there was a lot of Hispanics, Mexicans, and Central Americans. And even though I related to both groups to some extent, I also knew that we were also very different. I remember early on in life, I always recall a time where I knew about my illegal immigration, and I actually used to share the story with people as something to laugh and joke about. It was something that I actually thought was funny, so I would often share the story with my friends and teachers, and just let people hear about who I am. But as life went on, it kind of changed a bit as life started getting harder. I remember in high school, that's probably the first time where I got to a point where I knew that my illegal immigration was going to affect me in a pretty difficult way, as I saw a lot of my friends getting jobs, uh, getting driver's license, and because of my lack of documentations, I was very limited. So I think for the first time in my life, there was a sense of shame of my immigration status. So it became a thing that I didn't really talk about as much like I did in my early childhood. Going through high school, I did have a group of Brazilian friends who, some of them were second generation immigrants, others were similar like me who had illegal status as well. So we kind of stuck together and just bonded and shared like same cultural practices. But as life went on, people went their separate ways, and times to transfer to the university came, and I really didn't know what I do with my life. Uh, my understanding at that point in time, for the most part, my understanding of immigration came from a Brazilian community that I grew up in. A lot of them were from a Brazilian church in San Francisco that we attended for many years. And even though there was a lot of good insights that we learned, there was a lot of misinformation as well. One thing that we had heard over and over the years was that it's illegal for immigrants to go to university. We thought, and we believed that, so we thought there was no way I was going to be able to go to school. I would have to just pick up a job or maybe immigrate to a different country because there would be no opportunity for me. So as soon as I graduated college, I got into the workforce doing illegal jobs. I worked with my dad for a time. I picked up side jobs helping people move, and I did find an under the table job at a pizzeria for a few years. But it was definitely a huge struggle because I had grown up in America, and I definitely had a good education that allowed probably for better opportunities. But I was working under the table, and at sometimes making less than a minimum wage. But it was a challenge because there was nothing really I could do about it unless something changed from the top of the government. There was nothing really I could do. After a while, I did get informed that it is possible for immigrants to go to college. So I started attending a local community college. At the time, we had to actually pay the same amount of fees that international students pay. So I believe at the time it was 3 times more than what residents pay. So it was pretty expensive for me, but it was good because I kind of didn't have direction of what I'd do with my life and what I'd study. But because it was so expensive, I'd made sure I passed every class, even classes that I didn't particularly enjoy. And a lot of my friends who were residents would drop out of class and just party and hang out for a couple of years before they got their life together. So I think there was definitely some good that came from my illegal status. When time for transferring came, I actually found a private university in Southern California called the Masters University. I went to visit and I expressed to them my desire to go to school there, and I was very open about my immigration status. My legal immigration was something at this point in life that I didn't really talk to many people about. Only people who I knew were in the same boat or other Brazilian people. But I was honest and I explained my whole life story to them. And I said I really wanted to go to school there, but there was no financial means and I couldn't take out a loan. I didn't qualify for FAFSA or any of that. And so they actually helped me out tremendously, almost gave me a full ride scholarship and pretty much gave me grants that were available only to international students. Even though I wasn't technically an international student, they put me under that status and allowed me to get through school for 2.5 years. While going through school, I kind of had a dilemma in my mind. I definitely felt that living in America would be very challenging. Even if I had a bachelor's degree, it didn't really mean much if I couldn't legally work in the country. And I kind of had just a moral dilemma. I grew up in a Christian household with Christian faith, and I just felt like ethically it wasn't the right thing to do. I wish that the government would reform immigration, but it didn't look like it's something that would likely happen. So I very strongly considered going back to Brazil after I graduated from the university. So actually my last year at the college, my very last semester, there was a immigration amnesty that was passed by President Obama at the time, called the DREAM Act, that actually gave legal status to people who were in my situation, who came to the country illegally at a very young age. So that completely changed my life. I probably would have moved back to Brazil and arrived to Brazil as a foreigner, because I grew up in America my whole life, never returned to Brazil since I was 2.5. But with this opportunity, I ended up staying in the States. I was able to qualify for a work permit and able to work in America. And yeah, things changed tremendously for me. And after that amnesty came out, I for the first time in my life thought I felt like a American, because I pretty much was in the same field, level field as everyone else. I was able to work. I was able to apply for jobs. I was able to get medical, dental, just different insurances that I didn't qualify for. I was able to get a driver's license. Most of my friends I grew up with got their license at 15 or 16. I think I ended up getting mine at like 23 or 24 years old. I remember passing my test, and the guy was kind of shocked how good of a driver I was and my age. But I had been actually driving illegally for quite a few years and got a few run-ins with the law during that time. But yeah, growing up in America as a legal immigrant did bring a lot of challenges, but I think there was a lot of good that came with it as well. The struggles that I went through allowed me to be the person I am today. And looking back, I'm thankful for everything I went through. I still at some points don't really know how to define myself. I know when I first went to visit Brazil, I felt like a foreigner there, because I didn't grow up there and didn't really share the same culture as Brazilian born raised people. And then still in America, I feel like an outsider, because I don't feel like a true American. So I definitely feel like I'm a hybrid, but I guess to some extent everyone has a story that's similar to that. So yeah, thank you for your time.